Hi there, thanks for joining me. I've had a few questions asking about how I made this image and the series of images that followed it, about what the post-production was and what the lighting was and generally how it was made. So I thought I'd get around to actually making the video for you. So with this image, mostly this is about getting the lighting right. I've had a few people say, is it just, is there a post-production technique that makes this look? Actually, you can do this in Lightroom quite simply. What you need to understand first, though, is that you really have to get it right in camera. You have to get the right lighting and the right kind of lighting levels to make an image like this work and the right mood. So what I'll do is, just to get into it quickly, I'll talk you through how the lighting's set up, and then if you're interested, you can carry on listening into how I get the style of this to look quite right like this. So when I'm making a picture like this, it is a studio picture, but it's backlit, and often in the studio people always have front lights, but you don't really want this for this kind of style. We're trying to do something really moody. So I'll take you into the lighting diagram for this, but have a little look at the moment how everything's lit, how the smoke's lit, and how the hands lit the gun and the face. But just to let you know, there's no smoke brushes, there's nothing done to the smoke, that's how it was in camera. Nothing's been changed, it's just as it was. There's no trickery going on or anything like that. So I'll show you the lighting diagram. I'm sorry this is quite basic, but it gives you the idea. So down here we've got the camera at the bottom, shows the angle, and the large sort of white rectangle is the sofa that he's sitting on. It was just a really cheap sofa, and the sort of elliptical black area is where he was sat, and then we've got this sort of black block here, which is I just used anything to block out the light coming straight into the camera. It's just that when you have the light, as you can see where the light is here, it's facing towards the camera, so we're shooting into the light. What we don't want to do is have the light going straight into the lens, because we'll get that kind of haze or ghosting effect on the lens that lowers the contrast, and that's going to really kind of ruin the image. So you just need to block it out with something, and I know people have the specialist stuff for this, but I really think just holding anything over it works. But try to make it something that's black, because what we don't want to do then is bounce light back into our subject. So I think I used like the 5-in-1 reflectors. Some of them have, you can have like a black side, or you can just leave the cover on it and use it like that, so it just kind of blocks out the light coming back into the camera. So the idea with the light is the light has to be very close to the subject. That's because we want to use the light at quite a high power setting, and make sure that, because the light's falling off really fast, your inverse square law, that when the light is close to the subject, the light falls off very quickly. So when we're making our exposure in the camera for that light source, what we find is that the light hits the subject and then it falls off so fast that we don't get the light bouncing around the room much. And at the top of this image we have the background, so we may be fairly close to the background. We don't want to be too close, but even if we're fairly close, the light will fall off so fast that it's not really touching the background much. But you do have to have a bit of space between your subject and light source and the background, and it's better if you have a dark background, at least a sort of a dark grey. And when I shot this, I was in a studio, and I had the sort of mid-tone grey paper backdrop. So when I'm positioning the light, it's also up and tipped down about 45 degrees, because if we go back and look where his leg is here, if I just had it straight at him, his leg would be and knee would be very close to the light, and his face would be quite far away, and because the light's so close, we'd get a really bright knee and we wouldn't be able to see the face properly. So what I did was angled it down at 45 degrees, so that every part of him was pretty much the same distance. We got like an even lighting across his body. Even the glass with the whiskey in was put on to this side close to the viewer, so it was backlit, so the light was coming through it. Now this was really the first studio shoot that I ever did, and in hindsight now I would have cloned some of the liquid in the glass. I mean, I could even go in and do that, but I would do that so at least it's you don't have these sort of burnt out bits. But what we wanted was a soft. It's lit with a softbox, so even with the smoke, when we're looking at the smoke here, the smoke's backlit. That's how you get smoke to show up. It's backlit. And with a gun, I wanted this light to become the outline here, and across obviously the face as well on the cigarette, so we get that separation from the background. And really, when we backlight in a dark environment like this, that's what you're creating. You're creating a separation between the subjects and the background by backlighting them. And you don't need any more than that. You don't need to start putting in reflectors and bouncing light back into them for a shot like this. You just want one light source and a very sort of narrow beam of light. The light's fairly soft because it's coming from a softbox that's really close by, but it falls off really quickly. That's why we're very quickly going into the darkness and nothing again. So once we get that, when we get that sort of high contrast lighting with the light being really close to the subject, he's backlit, we find that instantly our picture starts to look like this. See, where a lot of people go wrong when they're trying to make pictures like this is they just get the lighting wrong. If you put the light at the front and then maybe one at the front, one at the back, you just don't have that high contrast environment like this that you're going to get it. So when you take this into post-production, the post-production is really easy. It's not about having a complicated post-production routine. It's about understanding how light works and getting the lighting right in the first place. With the smoke, this was just something that we fiddled around with. What we noticed was that we were getting two types of picture, one with the sort of a cloud of smoke, and one where it was just sort of making a little sort of snake trail pattern lifting up. But what we found was that if he inhaled a bit of smoke and blew it out, and then held his breath, so he wasn't making any more air movement, that the smoke would then just start rising up. So he'd pull some into his mouth, blow it out a little bit, and then just hold his breath, and then the smoke would rise up. And that's how we got this shot. And I thought that I wanted that because having the gun here like this, where he's sort of loading the gun, the smoke kind of matches to that as well. And where he's blown it, I got him to blow it almost towards the end of the gun here, so you can't almost tell whether there's smoke coming from the gun as well. I just wanted to leave that in the air where people weren't too sure. And the whiskey and the gun and the cigarette all go together. There's like a sort of a line, a diagonal line across the picture. If you follow that, it starts at his face and goes down through the cigarette, through the gun, through the glass, and then finishes on his knee and his leg going out of the picture. So we're sort of reading the picture left to right, diagonally downwards. And that's really part of the composition of the picture. You have to not just create something that's random and think, oh, what am I doing with this? You have to think, where's the smoke going to be? How's that going to work? Where's the gun in relation to his face, in relation to the other objects in the picture? We want to make a composition that's important. And he has to have some sort of expression. He looks like he's focusing a bit on what he's doing. He's got that intention in his face. You need to have all of those elements come together where it looks like the model is purposeful in what they're doing, like they're really intent on doing something, and all the elements of the picture have to come together. This picture has a lot of dead space in it, but we don't have to worry about that. It brings it together, and with a few items we can make it coherent, and it becomes a stronger image like that. So once we get an image like this into post-production, really, you can edit this in Lightroom. You can just use a bit of clarity, bring the black area down, maybe boost the contrast slightly, and then what I'll do is any areas where there's maybe a touch of the background or a little bit too much of something coming through, I'll just take a brush, drop the exposure, and just burn those areas down slightly, and that's it. But an edit like this, you can do, minute and a half, something like that. You can do it really quickly. It's just you've got to get the lighting right in the first place. So I'll come back to the lighting diagram again, and as you can see, it's just really straightforward. Just remember to get your softbox at the right angle so the person's evenly lit. It has to come down across them at sort of a 45-degree angle and be from behind them. Block the light source so it doesn't flare into the camera, and make sure that you've got you need a large enough room. If you try to do this in your living room and it doesn't work, then you haven't got a large enough room. You could probably, if you didn't have much wind, you could probably do this outdoors quite well. You might have to do it at night time, but it would probably work really well like that. That would be another way to do this. This was done in a studio when I used to have a studio, and it was quite large. It was the first shoot that I did in there. I think it came out quite well. It's been quite popular. Anyway, I hope that's useful. If you've got any questions, just ask. And I'll try and do some more videos like this for some other pictures in the future as well. So, thank you.